Scepter. My lord, according to this file, the Mind Scepter was the Mind Stone. Wait, didn't we already know that? You know, my lord, that was very unclear.
Flashback.
He's found an Infinity Stone.
On a planet called Morag.
Father's plan is finally evolved.
One stone is in 6, Nebula.
It's a start.
End of flashback.
Two different nebulas. No, it's still the same nebula, she just hasn't betrayed me. Yet. Oh, Father, please, I would never. And then you watch as another version of yourself is talking as though he got all of the stones and actually managed to destroy them. Like, it's a short-sighted decision, sure,
Pick
but you
your
have
hero.
to respect the
Or
balls
villain,
on this
I'm
guy
not
to
judging.
destroy the Infinity Stones. And he actually managed to get all of them, and so it seems that every version of you is
Inevitable.
so you
You
watch the
don't have to
hologram to
be a
see them
witch
trying to
to find the
undo
magic in
something
this
another
world.
version of yourself
But it
did
does
in their
help.
timeline. My lord, this is your future. No, I gotta catch them all. It is my destiny. And then you watch as the other version of yourself has its head cleaved from its shoulders. And that is Disney actually allowing a beheading live on camera. I mean, that is destiny fulfilled. Disney? Doesn't matter. Anyway, and then the Moor tries to
Chaos
strangle your daughter. You're just like, whoa, come on,
Time
like, this is
of blood
golden
that
opportunity
showed
here.
to
Like,
us in
calm the fuck
control.
down. We're gonna use this to our advantage. You can
30
try and find a
seconds
way of
before you
putting
attack.
your nebula
Get ready.
into that team of Avengers because you know, they're identical in every way except for
Even the
well,
Sorcerer
that golden
Supreme
plate
cannot
on
win
their head.
this
But
battle
first you
alone.
need to capture the other nebula, and by some more techno magic, you are able to paralyze
I
her
will
just before she's
gladly
about to
fight
send
by your
herself back
side,
to the
Dragon.
future, and you
But
get her
nothing
aboard your
more.
ship. And then for some reason, Nebula and Gamora decided they want to go and interrogate
The
her.
battle
Bear
starts
in
in
mind you have
5,
access to all of her
4,
memory files, so
3,
why
2,
they felt the need to go and interrogate her rather than just extracting the information through her systems, you don't know, but at least they're gonna have some fun with that. And it doesn't take too long because Nebula comes back with some vial of magical red stuff. What is this? Like some kind of blood? No, Father, it's particles that allow you to shrink in size. And how do you know that? Well, the other Nebula told us. They use this to shrink in size, passing through something called a Mobius strip inverters, going into the quantum realm and using that to travel backwards in time. Wait, Mobius? Is he going to appear? Oh my god, are these Avengers working with a TVA? That's a big problem, isn't it? Oh my god. Father, if you reverse engineer that, then you'll be able to shrink down the ship. Wait, wouldn't we need more than just this little vial to shrink down a ship and our entire army? You know, like this amount of magical bullshit seems to be about one use for one person. Wouldn't we need like a vat the size of a small moon to like make an entire army shrink down? Probably, Father, yes. And how would you expect me to get all of that? I don't know, Father. So you want me to use this red liquid, reverse engineer his mechanisms, so I can shrink this ship small enough to pass into the quantum realm. A thing that we didn't even know was 100% true until this very minute, and then wait for you to maybe switch on a device to send us back in time. How will we even communicate with you? Don't worry, Father, you can do it all off screen and it'll be done in a heartbeat. Oh, why didn't you just say that sooner? Oh, thank God, that actually solves a lot of those problems, doesn't it? Now we can let people draw their own conclusions. So you send these particles to your best scientists and hope that they can reverse engineer them. And it works. You manage to shrink down the entirety of your ship. Off screen, of course. In the meantime, Nebula goes to work. In a few moments, she sends back a signal. And you and your men arrive in a very dark and desolated place because you know, just blew up. So you get Scotty to beam yourself down to the planet. And Nebula's like to you, hey, what are you gonna do? If you know anything about heroes, is that eventually they will come to you. So you sit your ass down and rest your face, because frankly, it's tired of trying to carry two movies. Or at least definitely the previous movie, frankly, like, that was really your story. And now you're feeling some variant trauma. Speaking of which, where are those TVA dickheads? Like, these creatures are fucking around with time travel, something the TVA hates. But no, nada. Wow! These Avengers must have some insane plot armor, and that might prove challenging going forward. In the distance, you hear some Avengers talking, saying something about, what is he doing? And you even think you hear one of them say, he's just sitting there. menacingly. Then three of Earth's mightiest heroes appear. One of them is Asgard, and it's the medieval knight, the Hammer God, and the guy that's on the juice. And the Hammer guy, he really looks like he's let himself go. He looks more like a dilapidated pudding than God. And after seeing how these ungrateful wretches want to obey after what you're very good, you realise no matter what you do, if life and members injured 50% of their friends and family, they're going to want to get some sweet, sweet vengeance on your ass. So simply put, it's just better to destroy everything and start from scratch and make a new reality, but this time with blackjack and hookers. But seriously, it's like they don't even know that you're trying to stop the Celestials from destroying their planet. Like, come on, I know it's established a few movies down the line and you still have to draw your own conclusions, but that's pretty much the game plan, right? That was your plan, right? Or was it some sadistic dance with death because you love her so much? We don't know. You don't know. This is all very ambiguous and no one has a clearly defined answer. But all you got to do now is break these fools' ankles and get the stone. And they look like they're really free. Which you more than happy to. You are a match for any god of hammers and apparently axes too now. Any medieval knight and any person who's on the juice, because you are on the juice yourself. But it turns out the medieval knight is not actually made by him, but is in fact wearing some magical techno bullshit suit. But that doesn't matter so much because you can still kill them. And you give it to them good. You don't even need your mix. And you show these Avengers what's up. These guys managed to defeat your variant. That guy must have been pathetic. Anyway, you use the Hammer guy as a punching bag until he throws his axe at you. But you just catch that shit in midair and start using it to try and gouge a hole in his chest. Then you get hit in the head with the hammer. And you look back and it's the roided up spandex guy. And he just looks at you holding the hammer and you're just like, is this supposed to be a big moment, my friend? Like, you're holding a hammer, whoop-de-f***ing do. Anyway, time to deal with this clown. Turns out that hammer is not weak. Pretty strong and it lays you the fuck out. And he's doing combos, like he's been practicing with this thing all of his life. And he's just like, didn't he just pick this up like 2 seconds ago? How is he able to do this? And I mean, out of all the gimmicks, how were roids and hammers the one that are going to beat you? Like a human with steroids and a hammer. I thought roids were meant to make your hammer smaller, not stronger. And apparently he can summon lightning now too, and there is no end to this magical bullshit. Anyway, you cleave that guy's shield in half and you send him on his ass. And you whip out your Shatari armor. And you tell the spandex man that you're about to enjoy what you do very much. As though you've been gooning at the Pornhub like a North Korean soldier in Russia. And he actually walks forward alone. I mean, you gotta respect that. Like, no backup, no man, just him and a broken shield. Commendable, but stupid. And that's when a portal opens. Finally, the TVA is here. Christ, better late than never. Oh, no, that's not the TVA. That is African soldiers and wizards. And now you realize that you have a literal war on your hands. After a brief moment of fighting some wizards and African soldiers for some reason, you're supposed to be in America and there are no American soldiers here fighting against you. But whatever, this is how it is. You think the country with the largest military budget in the world would defend against a literal spaceship over their city. But what do you know? You are not a human. But you can't dwell on that too long because everyone points at the problem. And you swing your blade and toss it on the floor and victory is within your grasp, but as you run towards it, some other person with magical bullshit shows up. This time it's Red though, and they say to you,
"You took everything from me."
Again!
but out of all the magical bullshit that you've suffered this day, this is by far the worst. And good lord, she is strong. So you call your troops to rain fire, because you think this is like the only way you can distract them. And there's been some yellow magical glowing bullshit come from the sky and go straight through your ship, destroying it. And you're just like, okay, it's fine. If we get the gauntlet in the end, all of this is worth it. A little bit of sacrifice. And that's when the magical yellow glowing bullshit lady picks up the gauntlet herself and assembles with all of the women. Which is a surprisingly controversial moment in 2023, which is when the movie is set. But you identify where they're going to take it, which is some beat up old van in the middle of the battlefield. So you know, you toss your blade into it, destroying the whole thing, and basically circumventing their entire plan. Why you didn't do this before? We don't know. But hey ho, we got there in the end. And you see the planet on the ground, and once again, victory is in your grasp. Almost salivating at the thought. You almost get through there, and the medieval comes out and stops you. And then the hammer guy, who seems really hell-bent on trying to hit your head, and then the bandit. And you get them good, and you knock them out cold. Finally! And that's when magical bullshit number 3 comes back and she manages to stop you in your tracks. You don't know what's more surprising, the fact that she thought that haircut looks good, or the fact that she managed to hold her own against you. But you swat her away like a bug and get your hands inside of the gauntlet. Finally, the moment you've been waiting for. But you can't savour it for too long because magical bullshit number 3 comes back again and as she manages to hold your fist open. Why does it have to be a snap? But she gives you another cheeky 1d1, and for a second you think she might actually do that. Now wouldn't you all this all these stories, all finished by someone that only had one movie previous to this one. Now that would have been a tragedy. But thankfully you realise that the purpose stone is the power stone, and you can use it to beat her because you let her do it. And you take a sigh of relief as you put that stone back in the slot. And now you can savour it. You feel that rush of energy flowing through you. This thing, maybe you could have had a dwarven made gauntlet, maybe this would do less damage to you, but hey ho, you can't argue as long as you get the results. Now you are going to win, and there is no one that can stop you. And then of course the medieval knight comes back again and tries to stop you, but it doesn't matter because, you know, but nothing happens. Turns out you forgot to check if the stones are still in there. Never mind that, you know, there's no energy flowing through you at that point in time, so how you were able to overlook such a monumentous thing is quite bizarre actually. And you look over and you see the medieval knight with all of the stones in his hand, and he looks you dead in the eye and says,
This is real firepower!
you sit down and watch the whole world think, he did it.
Again!
You were born dead! Anyway, if you like this video, please give it a like and also consider subscribing because I do a lot of these videos now. Apparently this is my thing. I just want to shout out my members, especially Talent on X, Lavender, Yuri and Alan. Thank you, have a great day and have a great life.
Pentagram of Corral. One couldn't win without the others.
Ironheart, no wonder Marvel tried to bury this show. Ooh, man.
Remember back in school when you had to do some class presentation, only when it got to the day and the other kids started doing theirs, you realized you totally misunderstood the assignment and done something completely wrong, so your only option was to hide at the back of the class and just hope against hope that the teacher would forget about you and let you off the hook.
Yeah.
Well, that's basically Ironheart for you. A TV show commissioned 5 years ago when the whole let's swap out beloved legacy characters for diverse new alternatives craze was at its obnoxious peak in the MCU, based around a particularly unpopular comic book character from arguably the least successful era of Marvel Comics ever, who did nothing but ride the coattails of her far more popular male predecessor, only with none of his charm, likability, flaws.
Good. 30 seconds before you attack. Get ready.
But I will gladly show it who is in control.
Stark? Goldilocks? Even here, at the end of all times, you persist with the nicknames.
Well, if I ever call you by name, it'll be a sign that I'm actually Loki.
Good to know.
I hope my brood baby didn't eat all of the...
The battle starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All you need to do is capture the mission area. Got it?
Sounds easy. Which means it's probably not, right?
You're about to find out. Chaos control. Feeling stronger already. Looks like the mission area is
This is real firepower!
On your toes. Here they come.
Maximoff, the mutant flesh, shows her true colors.
Goodbye. We'll have to keep fighting until we have a winner.
There is no reason to be afraid of my magic, unless you give me one. You are under my spell.
30 seconds before you attack. Get ready.
Jeffy!
I'm happy to see you too, you adorable little ball of murder!
Daddy missed you.
Don't worry, you earned your place as the #1 breakout star. I won't steal it from you, but I may shoot for a closer.
The battle starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All you need to do is capture the mission area. Got it?
Sounds easy. Which means it's probably not, right?
You're about to find out.
What did...
The enemy is here.
They got me good. I can use a hand. Maybe a foot.
Slow down.
You're not going anywhere.
Looks like the mission area is yours to capture now. The mission area is yours.
Does that mean I can start redecorating it now?
Shut it. The battle isn't over yet.
May Khonshu show you mercy.
Judge, jury, executioner!
I won't make the same mistakes again.
Help! I'm hurting pretty bad over here.
Ah, that's better. Wish you could be here.
To me!
Under my spell.
Lead them to Khonshu! Beholds the God of Thunder!
Their team's capture progress has passed the halfway point.
Chaos control. No, my baby.
They've almost got it!
My healing factor can't keep up. How about an assist?
Battlefield ready again. Judge, jury, executioner!
Keep fighting until we have a winner.
Hell unleashed!
Right is right. I'm not a hero. I'm the Punisher.
Seconds before you attack. Get ready.
Taking charge. Is this really what it's come to? Working with petty thieves?
Who's the one being petty, home? Last I checked, we was both fighting the good fight.
Milk, eggs, butter. What am I forgetting? No, right! Grenades!
The battle starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All you need to do is capture the mission area. Got it?
Sounds easy. Which means it's probably not, right?
You're about to find out.
I know what you're thinking.
Oh man, Deadpool makes these bad look so good!
Well, you can't argue with them.
I'm hunkering down.
Out of control!
Looks like the mission area is yours to capture now. The world.
I've always wanted my own mission.
You better stop talking and start fighting. Capture the mission area. Sure you do.
Now, a disappearing
Down goes their accuracy percentage!
Behold the God of Thunder!
That's better. Goodbye for now.
I have become vulnerable. Here they are, the fools. Judge! Jury!
My goodbye for now.
Their team's capture progress has passed the halfway point.
Messing with my head.
Magneto showing the kids how it's done.
Control seized.
These could be traps.
The team up nobody asked for!
There's a Lord Icon bonus.
In your face! With the hey, hitting real hard!
We cannot let them claim victory.
Hell unleashed!
Us against the world! They've almost got it!
I'm opening a portal.
Behold the God of Thunder!
Let's keep fighting until we have a winner.
Judge! Jury! Executioner!
Well, you can't expect to win them all.
There's a specific kind of performance that breaks the unspoken contract between actor and audience. Not because it's bad or even excessive, but because it's way too effective. When an actor plays a villain so convincingly that the performance begins to eclipse the fiction itself, something strange happens. The character stops feeling like a role and starts feeling like a revelation of their inner being. The audience can't do anything besides fixate on them and every little decision they make because it's always intentional. They quote them, they mythologize them, and eventually they start projecting that menace back onto the actor, as if no one could inhabit something that sinister fully without bringing part of it with them. This video is about actors whose control is so precise, so committed, that it destabilizes the story around them. Performances that don't just sell evil, but make it too legible, too persuasive, too real. And nowhere is that more apparent than with Homelander from The Boys. This is a character I've been meaning to talk about because I love Anthony Starr's portrayal. As someone who read the comics every now and then when they were coming out, I never thought they'd actually adapt the show at this point in time, given how most people are tired of the superheroes, but they're real gritty and realistic trope. But I was pleasantly surprised when I binged the first season during the pandemic that shall not be named. And Starr's portrayal and constant evolution of his Homelander is half the reason I stuck around for the later seasons. You see, Homelander's menace doesn't come from spectacle alone. It comes from accumulation. Across The Boys, Anthony Starr builds the character like a psychological case study unfolding in real time. Rewatching a few of the earlier episodes in preparation for this video, the opening season shows him as kind of well-adjusted in a fucked up way, if you know what I mean. Like he's comfortable with his team, playing up his heroics for the camera while doing boss dirty work, but he doesn't scream complete psychopath in this game. He's kind of just Superman but evil, done well. As the series progresses, that performance erodes. As this facade starts to fade away, and his environment becomes more hostile, his choices become more impulsive, cruelty becomes more casual, and the need for control replaces the need for approval. What makes Starr's portrayal so effective is his restraint. Violence feels inevitable because he's comfortable with it, but you're not sure exactly what he's going to do, so the existential dread still looms over everyone around him. Starr's control over micro-expression, the switch from vulnerability to contempt in a single beat, gives him a sense of internal logic that makes his actions feel terrifyingly earned. And I know there's a lot of meta discussion about him getting absolutely folded by characters in different universes. At his power level, he wouldn't be able to hold a candle to the likes of Superman or Omni-Man, but in this world, he's the ultimate symbol of power.
The only man in the sky.
The writers having to constantly work around direct or prolonged confrontation with him is fascinating because he could end the story at any time he wants to. Half the reason characters like Butcher or Huey are even alive is because he enjoys being around people who aren't afraid of him. He knows what everyone thinks of him, but most are terrified to even acknowledge it. And even for a character that thrives on ego, it gets kind of boring sometimes. The world adjusts around his instability instead of correcting it. That's why people half-jokingly speculate that Anthony Starr himself must be unhinged, because this performance feels lived in. It suggests an understanding of insecurity, entitlement, and rage so specific that audiences mistake insight for identification. The irony is that Starr has demonstrated the opposite range elsewhere, particularly in Banshee, where his physicality and emotional presence are grounded in reality. Homelander is proof of an actor with enough precision to make evil feel coherent. And when evil feels coherent, it stops being entertaining and starts being unsettling. Moving on to everyone's favorite fictional Führer, Hans Landa, a menacing SS colonel whose nickname alone would get me demonetized. Hans Landa is terrifying because he is perfectly lucid. Christoph Waltz plays him as a man who understands every room he walks into before anyone else does, and who enjoys that advantage far more than violence itself. From his very first scene in *Inglourious Basterds*, Landa establishes control through language. He talks too much, too politely, too intelligently, and always just long enough to let the other person doubt themselves. Waltz gives Landa an almost theatrical charm. Bingo! How fun! At first he's playful and courteous, lulling you into a false sense of security, but it never feels comforting. It's strategic. What makes the performance so destabilizing is that Landa doesn't need cruelty to assert dominance. Cruelty is simply an option he keeps in reserve. His menace lives in patience. As the film progresses, Landa's choices reveal a character who isn't ideologically driven in the way we expect Nazi villains. She isn't fueled by fanaticism and hatred so much as by self-preservation and intellectual vanity. Based on the real-world Austrian captain Alois Brunner, Waltz plays him as someone who treats morality as a negotiable concept, something to be rearranged if it benefits him. This is why the character feels so modern and so uncomfortable. Hans sees himself as a pragmatist who understands power structures and knows exactly when to align himself with them. His decision to betray the Nazi regime stems from calculation. Waltz never softens this turn. There's no moral awakening in his performance, only opportunism delivered with the same polite cadence he used while hunting Jews. What makes Waltz play his part too well is how fully he commits to Landa's intelligence without ever signaling villainy through exaggeration. There's no grandstanding, no snarling, no operatic rage. Even when Landa is most threatening, Waltz keeps his voice measured and his body relaxed. He understands that fear intensifies when violence feels mundane. The audience is constantly aware that Landa could end a scene at any moment. That composure is what makes him linger in cultural memory. The consequence of that effectiveness is that Hans Landa becomes bigger than the film's moral frame. He dominates scenes so thoroughly that the story briefly bends around him, and audiences find themselves drawn to his presence despite knowing exactly what he represents. Waltz's performance is so controlled, so sharply articulated, that it risks glamorizing the very thing it's condemning. When a villain is played this well, the performance doesn't necessarily invite empathy, but it does invite admiration. For intelligence, for composure, for mastery. And once admiration enters the equation, the line between narrative function and cultural fixation starts to blur. Hans Landa isn't remembered as a Nazi antagonist. He's remembered as Hans Landa. And that separation is precisely why the performance is so unsettlingly effective. Amy Dunn is terrifying because she understands narrative better than anyone else in the film, including the audience. Rosamund Pike plays her not as a bundle of rage and trauma, but as a hyper-rational architect of perception. From the moment Gone Girl reframes itself halfway through, Amy stops being a mystery to solve and becomes a system to observe. Pike's performance makes it clear that Amy's greatest weapon is authorship. She controls stories, expectations, and moral framing. Every move she makes is designed with an audience in mind, whether that audience is the media, her husband, or us. Amy's development is so disturbing because of how coherent it is. There's no psychological break where she snaps and becomes something else. Pike plays her as someone who has always been this way, someone who learned early that performance is power, and that victimhood is a role that can be worn strategically. The famous monologue about the pool girl is delivered as a thesis. Pike strips it of catharsis. Amy is diagnosed as a system she is now and decides to weaponize. That composure is key. She isn't impulsive, and she isn't chaotic. She plans, revises, adapts, and escalates when necessary. Her and Lou Bloom would be a match made in heaven. Amy's choices throughout the film reinforce that she isn't motivated by jealousy, or even revenge in the conventional sense. What she cannot tolerate is loss of control. Nick's biggest failure is in his refusal to continue playing the role Amy designed for him. The same with her previous partners. Rosamund plays this as an insult to her very being. When Amy is wronged, the response is narrative correction. She wants Nick's life and legacy destroyed, even at the cost of her own life. That distinction is what separates her from more familiar thriller antagonists. Amy doesn't seek justice. She seeks authorship over reality itself. She plays it too well because she never blinks. In moments of extreme violence or vulnerability, the performance remains eerily centered. Her tears and dramatic expressions are deployed, not felt. Her fear is mimicked, not experienced. This creates a character who feels more like an algorithm designed to exploit social reflexes. Sympathy for women in danger, trust in media mentors, discomfort with female anger. The performance is so precise that it caused real-world backlash. Audiences projecting Amy's traits onto Pike herself, treating the role as evidence of something intrinsic. That reaction is the clearest sign the performance crossed into dangerous effectiveness. Pike understands that the most unsettling villains don't need to announce themselves with every move they make. They just need to understand the rules better than everyone else. By the end of Gone Girl, Amy has trapped every other character inside her narrative. And because Pike never signals remorse, instability, or collapse, the character doesn't dissipate once the film ends. She lingers as a demonstration of how easily perception can be hijacked and someone is willing to perform monstrosity with absolute control. Cersei Lannister is a study in how sustained, controlled villainy can hurtle into something genuinely unsettling over time. Lena Headey doesn't play Cersei as a schemer first. She plays her as someone whose identity is built around grievance. From the early seasons, Cersei's cruelty is inseparable from her humiliation. The constant reminder that power is loaned to her, never fully hers. Hetty grounds the performance in that resentment. Every decision Cersei makes is reactive at first, driven by fear of dispossession, fear of losing status, fear of losing her children, fear of being reduced to irrelevance in a system that tolerates her only conditionally. The performance is so effective in how patiently that fear calcifies into entitlement. As the series progresses and Cersei sheds rivals, children, and any remaining illusions of moral legitimacy, Hetty empties her. By the later seasons, Cersei is no longer loud or overtly theatrical. She's still watchful, economical. Power stops being something she reaches for and becomes something she forces. Hetty's restraint in these later stretches is crucial. The menace is in how little Cersei reacts at all. Violence becomes procedural. Suffering becomes background. The infamous Walk the Tone is the kingdom. Lesser performances are treated as catharsis or redemption. Hetty treats it as fermentation. Shame radicalizes her. From that moment on, the character is no longer negotiating with the world. She's punishing it. And Hetty commits fully to that psychological turn. There's no apology baked into the performance, no signaling that the audience should pity her beyond what the text already allows. That refusal is what makes Cersei so difficult to watch and so hard to resist. Hetty gives the character an internal logic that's consistent, cruel, and legible. You may hate Cersei, but you always understand her. And that understanding is what's fun. Viewers recognize the villain. They track it. They anticipate it. They feel complicit in it. By the end, Cersei doesn't feel like a fictional antagonist. She feels like a consequence. There have been many iterations of Daredevil over the past few decades. You got Michael Clark Duncan, Liev Schreiber, Dana White, and a few others. They all did a solid job, but it's clear that one stands out above the rest. Wilson Fisk's portrayal works best because Vincent D'Onofrio refused to play him as a conventional crime boss, and instead treats him as a man whose emotional dysregulation is the real threat. From his first appearances in Daredevil, Fisk isn't framed as omnipotent or cool. He's insecure and painfully self-aware of his own inadequacy. D'Onofrio builds the menace slowly, grounding it in wounded pride and fragile ego rather than dominance. Fisk's violence comes from humiliation. Every time he feels unheard or disrespected, the response is catastrophic. That internal trigger is what makes him unpredictable and terrifying. Across the seasons, Fisk's development becomes less about becoming more powerful and more about becoming more honest with himself. Early on, he's a man desperately trying to impose order on chaos. The city, his enemies, even his own emotions. D'Onofrio plays him as someone who wants to be seen as refined and principled, but who lacks the emotional tools to sustain that self-image. His relationship with Vanessa is crucial. With her, Fisk briefly believes he can be something else, something controlled. But the performance makes it clear this is a fantasy. Love doesn't civilize him. It just gives his violence a justification. When she accepts him fully, brutality and all, Fisk stops pretending restraint is possible. What elevates the portrayal even further is D'Onofrio's command of physicality and silence. Fisk's pauses are as threatening as his outbursts. He occupies space deliberately, often looming without speaking, forcing others to adjust around him. When he does explode, the violence feels like emotional rupture. It's excessive and deeply personal. Fisk drowns in cruelty, and that makes it harder to rationalize or distance yourself from what you're watching. Kingpin is also one of the rare villains whose power increases as his vulnerability becomes more visible. As the series progresses, Fisk gains clarity about who he is and what he wants, and that self-knowledge makes him more dangerous than any empire building ever could. D'Onofrio leans into this by stripping away performative civility. Later seasons, Fisk doesn't posture, he asserts. He understands that fear is more efficient than image, and he stops trying to be liked, even by the audience. He's played too well, because the performance blurs the line between pathology and humanity. Viewers see a deeply broken man whose emotions are simply scaled up to destructive levels. That realism has consequences. Much like the other roles in this series, audiences began associating the character's volatility and menace with the actor himself, a testament to how completely D'Onofrio inhabits Fisk's psychology. Kingpin feels like someone you're trapped in a room with, hoping you don't say the wrong thing. When an actor plays a villain too well, the performance stops being evaluated on technical terms and starts being treated like evidence of psychopathy. The line between construction and identity blurs. You stop talking about choices or control and start projecting intent or obsession onto the actor themselves. That's what connects all of these performances. They feel inhabited. They recalibrate the audience. After performances like these, lesser antagonists feel hollow, and safer portrayals feel dishonest. The bar moves, but the space to clear it narrows. When commitment becomes this total, it reshapes how we talk about acting altogether. and sometimes, unfairly, how we talk about the people doing it. In the next video, we're swinging the pendulum the other way, looking at actors who forgot they don't actually have range, and what happens when confidence outruns capability.
You're about to find out.
There are certain types of villains who aren't defined by cruelty or chaos. They're defined by logic. They argue for evil in ways that make you pause, that make you hesitate, and wonder if maybe they aren't entirely wrong. Their reasoning doesn't shatter under scrutiny. In fact, the more you think about it, the more dangerous it becomes, because it starts to make sense. Take Magneto, for example. His ideology is rooted in survival. As a Holocaust survivor, Eric Lehnsherr knows firsthand what happens when a minority is demonized and powerless to defend itself. His distrust of humanity is a direct response to history repeating itself. The films often frame Xavier's dream of coexistence as the right answer, but Magneto's point that humanity will always fear and seek to control what it doesn't understand has weight. His willingness to take extreme measures is terrifying, but besides that, his logic is airtight. Mutants will either take control of their destiny or be destroyed by those in power. The moral discomfort comes from knowing that if you lived his life, you might agree with him. His philosophy constantly evolves with every betrayal, every loss, and every time his cautious optimism is proven wrong. In First Class, we see the younger Eric driven almost entirely by vengeance, hunting down the Nazis who destroyed his family. Charles offers him another path, one built on trust and cooperation with humanity, and for a moment, he allows himself to believe in it. But when that fragile alliance collapses and humans immediately treat mutants as a threat, it cements a pattern that will define his life. Every time he reaches for peace, humanity pushes back with fear and violence. This cycle transforms his anger into something more structured, a long-term plan for mutant dominance, not just retribution. It's fascinating how his backstory fundamentally informs his every decision. His belief that mutants should rule, or at least be prepared to defend themselves by force, isn't presented as a thirst for dominance so much as a survival imperative across the X-Men films. The audience is always forced to reckon with the truth. Sometimes his violence is aimed at people who, by all moral measures, deserve it. The tragedy is that Magneto's drive for protection inevitably transforms into the very oppression he sought to avoid. His logic is airtight from his perspective, which is why his rhetoric often sways even Charles Xavier's students. In Days of Future Past and beyond, his motivations take on a grim inevitability. Having lived long enough to see wars and genocides repeat themselves, Magneto no longer fights to win. He fights to ensure that mutants will always be strong enough to survive the next purge. Even in Apocalypse, when he briefly retreats from the world to live a quiet life, the murder of his new family snaps him instantly back into the role of a soldier. By the time we reach Dark Phoenix, Eric isn't chasing conquest so much as carving out a safe haven where mutants can exist beyond the reach of human interference. To him, history is a fixed loop of persecution, and the only rational response is to break the loop by becoming too powerful to oppress. Eric's ideals makes perfect sense when viewed through his lifetime of experience, but the methods required to achieve it inevitably cost him the peace he's been seeking since the very beginning. Adrian Veidt in Watchmen is one of the rare antagonists whose plan actually works. His reasoning is cold, calculated, and with his mind unarguably correct. Humanity is on a path to self-annihilation, and the only way to avert nuclear catastrophe is through a unifying external threat. He's killing millions to save billions. Pretty straightforward. Veidt is what you may call a utilitarian extremist, willing to bring an end to countless lives in order to preserve the species as a whole. He's the smartest man in the world, and he carries that as both a burden and a responsibility. From his perspective, humanity is locked on a collision course with self-destruction. The Cold War arms race, political corruption, and escalating paranoia are all pointing toward nuclear annihilation. So he starts putting together his plan in the shadows, killing the comedian, staging an assassination attempt, doing exactly what's needed to accomplish his ultimate goal. By the time the heroes even understand his plan, it's already been carried out. Millions upon millions of people are dead, but nuclear war has been averted, and humanity has been scared into cooperation. His victory leaves no room for a clean moral judgment. He committed an atrocity that almost certainly prevented an even greater one. And unlike most stories where the right answer is baked in, Watchmen leaves that answer open because all the other characters, even the ones we view as righteous, can't provide a better solution. This is one of my favorite films that have the villain winning because the film actually allows his reasoning to breathe. He isn't a madman raving about power, he's already a billionaire. Merely a calm, albeit egotistical, articulate strategist who truly believes he's solving the unsolvable. That ending feels so chilling, quite literally, because there's no bargaining, no way to undo what's been done. After the heroes understand his plan, they kind of don't even want to interfere. The horror lies in the fact that his plan does create world peace. It forces the audience into an uncomfortable moral corner. Was he wrong to act, or are we just unsettled by someone willing to make the call that no one else could? The operative in Serenity doesn't see himself as a villain, and that's the point. He knows the regime he serves is deeply flawed, even corrupt, but he believes in its end goal, a universe without chaos. He's a tool, designed to remove anything and anyone that threatens that order. There's no sadism in his actions, only a grim acceptance that building a better world means eliminating those who would destabilize it. He fully expects to have no place in the utopia he's helping to create because it's not meant for men like him. That self-awareness, combined with his unwavering commitment, makes his morality both chilling and strangely admirable. From the moment he steps on screen, he radiates a quiet, almost spiritual certainty. He carries himself like a man who has already weighed every moral cost and paid it in advance. His manner is so composed that you almost forget the brutality he's capable of until he strikes, clean and without hesitation. That restraint makes him more intimidating than any raging warlord, because you sense he's already decided what your fate is before you even meet him. He's not driven by greed, hatred, or ego. He's driven by a deep conviction that the world can only thrive if the dangerous and imperfect are removed permanently. He's indifferent to the suffering he's inflicted upon others because of the unwavering belief that the better world he serves will be worth every life destroyed to get there. In his mind, the tragedy isn't the killing, it's that people can't see why it had to be done. His loyalty to the Alliance comes from a belief that order is the highest good, even if it requires assassinations, cover-ups, and acts of terror. His pragmatism and devotion to this cruel worldview is very realistic. The architect in The Matrix Reloaded isn't interested in human freedom. He's interested in systemic stability. His conversation with Neo reframes the war between humans and machines as a mathematical inevitability, not a matter of good versus evil. To him, the Matrix is the best possible compromise, an imperfect but sustainable reality that prevents total annihilation. His tone is clinical, detached, and infuriatingly logical. The danger of his philosophy is that it makes the rebellion feel like an emotional outburst rather than a righteous cause. If you accept his premise, resistance seems irrational. The Architect's introduction is one of the most jarring turns in the Matrix series because it's a dismantling of everything Neo and the audience believe to be true. He speaks in a way that feels alien, likely because his thought process is entirely detached from human sentiment. Every word, every pause is loaded with the kind of existential dread that makes resistance feel almost comical. It's not the booming voice of a tyrant, it's the soft finality of a man telling you the sun will rise tomorrow whether you want it to or not. He embodies cold, dispassionate logic pushed to the extreme. His role isn't to fight the heroes physically, but to explain, with clinical detachment, that choice itself is an illusion within his system. Human rebellion must be mitigated to prevent the total collapse of the Matrix. To him, Neo's struggle is a pre-calculated part of the design, and his worldview strips the rebellion of its romanticism. In his mind, the manipulation of reality is maintenance. He's terrifying because his power is structured almost as if he's relying on a higher power. The Matrix itself is his body, his weapon, his legacy. You can't punch him, outthink him, or intimidate him, because he has already calculated every variable you represent. For all the Rebels' fire and determination, the architect reminds you that they're still operating on a chessboard of his design. No matter how many pieces they take, the board remains his. Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men operates on a code that's alien yet consistent. He sees himself as an instrument of fate, removing personal bias from his actions. The coin toss is his way of surrendering moral choice to chance, absolving himself of responsibility while still enacting judgment. Within his warped worldview, he's fair. People live or die based on the impartiality of probability, not personal vendetta. It's terrifying because it strips morality down to something mechanical and inevitable. And in that framework, he's not a madman, he's a force of nature. He sees himself as an agent of fate, a necessary force in a world where chance governs everything. His detached demeanor makes watching his scenes very uncomfortable, but also fascinating. There's a warped consistency to his violence that feels almost philosophical. He spares some, kills others, and